Why are the boys so boring, Adam? I mean, when they were casting them, did they just look at their bods or did they not get them to speak?
Welcome to the return of Love or Lie Island. I'm Adam Miller, TV editor at metro.co.uk, and of course I am joined by the sensation that is body language expert Judi James, because we'll be deciding if the islanders are telling us one thing but their body language is saying something else. Oh, it feels good to say that, Judi. We're back. Ooh, we've got a new villa, kind of. A new twist, which we'll get to in a bit, and some new islanders. What have you thought of the islanders so far?
Why are the boys so boring, Adam? I mean, when they were casting them, did they just look at their bods or did they not get them to speak? Because, all right, there's about two in there that I would find quite interesting, and one particularly that we'll talk about in a minute that
Mhm.
I'm very intrigued by. But some of the, I mean, they need to send a crash cart in for some of them. You know, they're in, oh, I'm chilling and let's talk about what your favourite colour is. And no, you're not. You're not supposed to be chilling, you're supposed to be working. So that was my initial impression. I think the girls are pretty good. I think they could
Mm,
be a lot better. I think maybe
yeah.
move the men out, actually, I have to say.
All right, well, don't hold back. Okay, well, we are going to get to pretty much all the guys eventually. I'm going to take us all the way back to the opening seconds of this year's series, actually, when Laura Whitmore dropped the bombshell that for the first time the public were actually going to be coupling up our islanders. Let's take a look.
India. Go on over. Hello. Nice to meet you.
Everyone got some serious shoes on.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely painful.
So we saw India and Ikenna there, which was my favourite reaction of the night, but it pretty much summed up how all the islanders felt. How do you think that kind of marked a very different shift in dynamic compared to what we've seen before?
Yeah, Adam, this is huge in psychological terms. It might seem like a small step on screen, but when you think of the effect on the islanders, it's absolutely massive. It's kind in one way because you don't get that horrible thing like you used to get when they were picking the hockey team at school, where you were the one that nobody wanted, you know. And I think we've watched too. Was that you? I think it was me.
Kevin.
It ruins you for life, as we both know. Um, and I liked not having to see the rejects, but
Mm,
the problem is what that first selection process used to do was it created quite a dynamic pecking order. It was like, oh well, loads of the guys wanted me, or all the women wanted me, and you're the runt of the. It made it, in a way, it was crueler, but it was more exciting. But
mm,
what they had to put up with this time, and I think we shouldn't forget, is that it wasn't all kind, because then they're told that, oh, the viewers have picked your partner. Well, you're going to judge how you look depending on the person that then walks in. You know, you're obviously hoping that the best hunk or is going to walk in, and that's why you could see a bit of frost begin
mm.
to sort of settle. Is it all got very stereotypical? I think the audience need to maybe think about this a lot more next time. We don't all want Barbie and Ken, you know, same age. I mean, all of that didn't work, I don't think. The other
I mean,
thing that it has done is to create a little bit of an emotional trough at the moment, because everybody's kind of started off on a level and there were no loyalties. If I've said, well, I'll take that person because I like them, that means that I can get a bit possessive about them. But when it's just been decided by the viewers, there's no bonding there. So they've all been moving around in a kind of free fall now, haven't they? Where, oh, if I actually prefer that one, I can go and chat to them. And there's less room for that kind of freeze-on that we used to get, that where people say, oh no, actually that's my partner. They haven't got those attachments yet. So that's why it's been a little bit on those lines, a little bit flat at the moment.
mm. Do you think there was anyone that showed any signs that they were happy with their coupling at all?
Not really. Uh, no, I don't think anybody was delighted, actually. I think they all looked slightly shell-shocked, and I think you would.
Confused, wasn't it? I think as a viewer I was confused, and I think they were just quite confused. It was just a bit kind of like, well, why?
Yeah, yeah. What were they thinking? You know, and some of them I think look quite insulted, quite openly insulted, and some of them, both of them actually, with some of the pairings, look like, well, you know, I'm not exactly punching above my weight here, and I think that also made for a little bit of unpleasantness going forward.
I mean, India's reaction was priceless, but I think we've seen over the last couple of days a few of them being like, "Oh, I didn't give them the chance at the beginning," and I think you'd feel like, well, why should I? Because I didn't make that decision.
Absolutely. I mean, India's reaction, I have to say, I really like India so far. I think she's really
I love
interesting. I think she's been put out to pasture a bit. I think, you know, it'd be great if they could get her in front of the camera a lot more, but I don't know why she can't. But her reaction when she got paired off was absolutely priceless. We got 3 shrugs from her in one go. She did an eyebrow shrug, she did a mouth shrug, and she did a shoulder shrug. I mean, if she was wearing a t-shirt with the word whatever written on it, she couldn't have done much better. And he was the same as well. Because they kind of said to him, "Did they get this right?" And you're expecting to go, "Oh yes, wow, this is the." And there was this what I call death by pause, where he paused for much too far long, and then he said, "Oh yeah." And I love their hug, because when they hugged as well, she's doing the flattering pat, and that means break. That's a signal of break when you're hugging somebody. So that was a kind of polite "get off me now" gesture.
Yeah, it was very transparent, which I have to say, as a viewer, I definitely appreciated. But yes. And also, they've been saying, especially those two, they've been like, why can't we find anything to talk to each other about? And it's just because you're just not compatible.
No, they have no conversation. And I mean, well, if the viewer chose them and put them together, the viewer's getting what they deserve now, with the excruciating conversations. And, you know, watching these people in their VTs, they don't look that bad. I mean, they seem quite lively, but it's like somebody sucked the blood out of them. And you shouldn't have to have 2 people in there in the villa having to sit down together and say, I can't read your mind, and what are we going to talk about? I mean, you know, if that was a conversation on your train, you'd move carriages, wouldn't you? I mean, it's just so tight.
Right. Well, I mean, that was the interesting opener we had to this series, which has definitely changed the dynamic over the last few days, I think, as well. But next, we're going to look at Gemma Owen, who has been quite a divisive figure outside the villa. Inside the villa, I think she's probably emerged as kind of one of the most powerful already. But let's take a look at her love triangle at the moment between Davide and Liam.
Yeah.
Want to have kids? Want to have
How many?
like 4?
4? I always thought about 2.
Oh, that's a bit boring though, isn't it?
Well, we can go in the middle, 3.
No, I think 4.
Okay, whatever.
I mean, the one thing that everyone's talking about, and which you've actually noticed with Gemma, not just when she's talking to Liam and Davide actually, but generally, is someone will be talking to her and she is looking this way the whole time.
Yeah, no eye contact.
No eye contact, and in a way that I've never actually seen on that level in Love Island, I don't think. What did you make of that?
Adam, I have a fascinating little story for you here about what happened. In number one, I think she treats her men like she treats her dressage horses, which is kind of, you know, treat them mean and break them in some way, so that they will then start dancing. All the men that she's been through will be dancing sideways by the end of this, like a dressage horse. And I think she actually said, didn't she, about David, that I'm going to humble you or something like that. But, and this is what worries me slightly, because, you know, I know it's been mentioned a lot, but I agree. I think she's too young to be on a programme like that. And what we're not seeing, except you can pick it up in a small detail that was really important with David, when they sat down to talk together, when she was then going to have the conversation after he'd picked her and they sat down together. Watch the very start of that conversation, because he plays her like an emotional fiddle. She was expecting him to be all gushing and, darling, I'm so glad I chose you. She didn't use eye contact. He sat facing front. he also didn't really, and he got a big cushion and put it over his crotch and folded his hands over his crotch. Now, this is called an ignore, and it's a very good way to get somebody to pay you attention. If you lavish attention on them on a date or something, and then suddenly look away and act distracted, they then try to get that attention back again. And that's exactly what she did. He even said to her, she said, "Oh, how are you feeling?" And he said, "Oh, not good. I changed my mind. Like, I didn't want you after all." And yes, he was joking, but her head snapped round like a whip. Another horse thing there. But he got her eye contact. So I don't think that's a good sign though, because at 19, she probably doesn't need to be with somebody that can be, when I use the word manipulative, it sounds horrible and it's not, but more experienced. And, she's obviously wants to be more with somebody like Liam, who, will just be puppy dog sort of thing. But yeah, she's being what looks very smart, and she's being quite controlling, and she's going to be in charge. But he's smarter, and that worries me slightly.
There's been times where she's used insults kind of as a joke, which again on the outside has kind of divided people. And I do think, again, like you said, we have to remember she's 19, she's very young. But do you think it's rude, or do you think there is a kind of like an ulterior underbelly to those kind of insults that she's giving?
I mean, it is rude, but it's also a little bit of in a weird way, a chat up technique. You often find, particularly when somebody's dealing with, I mean, a lot of those guys, obviously they're good looking. Most of them boasted about, I kissed 101 girls in a nightclub in 15 minutes, So they're obviously selling their experience. They've probably been out with very beautiful girls. To be the one that is suddenly being rather rude and not sucking up like that is probably a way of getting attention. And I mean, obviously she's stunning looking. But so I think in a way it's probably for her a bit of a little bit of an attitude that is her version of a chat up line. And it does seem, I mean, for instance, with Luca, she got his attention straight, even though she was saying, "Oh, I don't like your surname." I mean, I'm sure if I went up to Luca and said, "I don't like your surname," I'd probably get a haddock round my chops. But with her, she got attention, and he saw how beautiful she was, and you could see that he was like, "Oh, she looks a bit of a challenge," which she probably enjoyed. So I think there's a method behind the rudeness, but I can understand why people are judging it. They're not comments that we should all be trying.
Yeah, I mean, she's still finding her way, isn't she? I guess, but there is definitely a wariness to her. I think 'cause it's actually not just with Davide and Liam that she does this quite stoic body language, and she's very in control and not really looking at anyone. She's either got the sunglasses on or she's literally looking in the other direction. And I do think she has a kind of wariness about everyone and everything at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite difficult to be empathetic, but when we all need to think about it, that at that age, being put in somewhere, a society with girls that are 25, 26, 27, they've all been working for many years, they've all social media, whatever, it actually should be very intimidating. And that's why I think probably we're judging at this what is supposed to be a little bit of a cold and strong exterior, but I think we need to give her the benefit of the doubt. I think we don't know how she's feeling inside, and that probably worries me a little bit more.
No, I agree. And also, she kind of did have a bit of a reputation before she went in. I think she's probably quite aware of what can happen when she comes outside more than the others, maybe.
Yeah, you still can't. The point is, there's no armour that they can make that will prevent that from happening. And unfortunately, it's kicking off already. And also, did we all see David when it was announced that the girls were coming into the house, the new girls? Within 1 minute, the next minute, it's like somebody got a spring under his seat. He just went leaping off. Oh yeah, he is. And this is the other thing that is worrying me about her lack of experience. She keeps asking him outright, "I want a moral man. You are a moral man. Like, have you had many dates?" And he is with his body language, and almost he'll get a banner written at one point, showing us that no, he's a bit of a player. And what she's doing is she's kind of ignoring that because she obviously finds him good to look at. And she's talking about babies and things like that. And that is a lack of experience that, Gemma, you're getting the wrong answers to those questions. But the attribution bias, this is called, because you think that you're trying to turn him into a nice guy. And I think he is a nice guy, but you're trying to turn him into this kind of moral guy that's only been out on one date in his life or something and wants to have children straight away. And I don't think that. Would you go on Love Island, really, if you were clever looking for somebody that was moral and hadn't been out with many women? I mean, they don't recruit in monasteries, do they, for that show?
It wouldn't be my first go-to. No. And again, like we're saying this, she's there talking about babies and marriage, but her body language was saying something completely different.
No. And and the other thing that we're all waiting for is that I think he might know, but she hasn't announced to her father as yet. So she's probably missing that little bit of status that will go on in there. She doesn't need it, really. I mean, she's got a great, strong personality anyway. She could have been
kind of entered with that status, I think, with Michael Owen or not. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how she unfolds. I think she's a tough nut to crack even. So it'll be interesting to see if she does kind of blossom a bit more. I think.
Yeah, as you say, a tough nut, but I think people are mistaking that for a tough, toughness, and I don't think she's as tough as she looks. And she may have met her match with David.
Well, next we're going to take a look at Luca. We did mention earlier that the boys aren't the most interesting boys they've had in Villa, but I actually find Luca quite fascinating. He's definitely was one of the stronger players in there. Let's just take a look at this.
So what, were you stepping forward?
Yeah, I probably would have, yeah. Would you?
What, step forward?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course I would have.
If I came out.
Yeah, I would have, 100%.
You had a nice spoon last night, did you?
I knew you were going to say that. What?
I'm not jealous, I'm not.
Not one bit?
Nah.
No, you didn't wish it was you. At all? Yeah, it's a weird one. Like, I am quite, into you a little bit.
Okay.
Now with Luca, I do like Luca, and I think he is a game player, but in a way that I don't find as offensive as someone that we saw maybe like Jake last year. I just think he's quite smart.
Yeah.
What do you think about kind of what we've seen from Luca so far? He's definitely been the most he's quite openly saying things that suggest that he's aware of the game, I think.
Yeah. Luca, I have to say, is the local hero of Love Island here, so I have to be careful what I said if I'm going to buy good fish again in the future.
Of course, yeah.
I think he's great. When I said earlier on that the guys were boring, he is the exception. I think he could actually be one of a good classic Love Island contestant that we'll talk about for years to come. He's quite difficult to work out. He is a girl's worst nightmare. You always get women will say, I don't care what you do as long as you don't lie to me, as long as you're honest with me. He is being honest and they hate it. The faces on them when, for instance, he was telling Paige, wasn't he, that he'd been, actually Tasha is in my top 3. She did this massive tongue poke, which is a gesture of absolute disgust, and you could see her face drop. But he's telling her, that's the whole point. That's what everybody, don't do it behind my back, which is always like a bit of a lie, really. What people want is tell me the truth, but only if it means that you like me. That's what they're on about. So he's being that honest guy that everybody's asked for. He's working the room, but I think he's probably working even now more towards a win, and I like that about him. I don't know either that, and I don't think this is true, or he's like something out of the Blair Witch Project, because when they showed them all in bed by night vision, and then we suddenly got the shot of everybody else was laying down sleeping, and there's this character sitting up with his hood on, just gazing around the room. That was pretty scary, actually. And I hope that, can you imagine being in bed with that, where you think everybody else is...
Was it Amber who said that he was awake all night or something? She was like, he didn't sleep at all. It was like...
I don't know how she sat next to him. Every time you turn around and he's sort of like sitting there. And he kind of has said that he's becoming a bit possessive about Tasha, that he was obviously, I saw you kissing, I saw you do this, I saw you do that. I mean, maybe he's up there all night just watching Tasha, but I don't think he's that smitten with her, to be honest. What's he up to? And I love the way that I'm engaged already and wondering, I thought I was just going to be reading his tattoos because I'd get bored there as well. But no, I think he's got quite a few depths. And the way that he was dealing with Andrew, getting Andrew to apologise after he'd been trying to pinch his bird was fascinating. And Andrew was nearly in tears, you know. I mean, I think he's got this Jack lad image, but I think there's something strategic behind it, and I like that. And he doesn't seem particularly weighed down by any sorts of loyalty.
He seems very self-assured, and I like that. Actually, he seems like he's always kind of reading the room. I think he's always kind of analysing his surroundings, but still manages to be present with whoever he's talking to. And he's very good at kind of engaging with everyone in the house on like a one-to-one basis and a kind of in a big group scenario. Which,
and that's why, I mean, it's a shame, sorry, that they didn't pair him off with India, because she has got so many signs of, you know, she's aware of things, talking about a lot of guys that red flags for her. She was very empathetic. She was complimenting all the girls when they first arrived. I think she is a little bit like him insofar as she's very aware of what's going on, but at the moment she's just being held back. It would be quite nice to see those two sparking off one another, I think, but probably not going to happen.
No, it'd be nice to just see her kind of sparking off a bit more with anyone. I feel like she's probably going to be one of the most interesting people in there, and we just haven't actually seen enough of her yet.
Oh, she'd spark off the bush better than she's doing in the relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, hopefully, we've got plenty of time, so hopefully we will get to see that side of India. We just mentioned there Andrew. So the next thing we're going to look at now is the quite explosive love triangle between Andrew, Luca, and Tasha.
You doing that?
I'll do it right now.
Kind of do want to like slow it down just a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah. I think because the first 2 days got so intense so quickly.
Yeah.
And I think I was like,
So the first clip was actually from episode 2. So I think we're 1 or 2 nights in. And then obviously the aftermath of Andrew being caught out by Luca when Andrew told Tasha that she wasn't in his top 3, which was a lie. I don't know. I don't really know what happened there, to be honest. But just looking at those 2 clips, I think there was like a night apart from them. The difference between Andrew in clip 1 and Andrew in clip 2. Let's go with clip 1 because he really went in there, and I think that clip revealed a lot about how Tasha was feeling, actually.
Yeah, I think because Tasha smiles more than any other woman in there, and that tends to make them all think that she's very sweet. She's quite flirty, obviously, and quite confident about being flirty. Again, she doesn't seem to. She's a bit like Luca, you know. I'm not really attached to anybody, so. And suddenly Andrew from left field, like as in nowhere, decided that he was going to spray his territory and go and give this huge kiss, which allegedly would then mean that none of the other guys would choose her. And it might have worked with Davi, but unfortunately it actually played completely into Luca's. It's almost, I don't know with Luca, it was almost like a Shakespearean turnaround and whispering and plots. Did he think that far ahead that I will make him believe that he should do that so Davi can't have him, but in the meantime I'll be I don't know. Actually, he is such a good character. He's got me.
He is good, isn't he? I think he's going to be great.
I know, and then Andrew. I mean, with Tasha, I think if they could come out of that kiss and watch it, he probably realised that it didn't do him a lot of good, because she put this slightly coy hand on her fist, and what she was doing, she was playing it for the others, because the minute they stopped kissing, she turned round, and it was almost like, oh look, he likes me that much, but I think it was actually, she even used that as a little bit of a flirt technique for the other 2 guys that were both watching her at that point. So, and she did kind of pull back like a scolded cat at the end, and they're all doing that at the moment. You get these big engagement of lips followed by wham. Nobody seems to carry on touching or even talking after they've kissed. It's so weird.
You're right in that she did kind of hold back. Do you think that was a bit of it was a yes, he's kissing me, but I don't almost maybe like a bit of a cry for help? I don't know.
little T-shirt with help written on it.
Yeah, I
No,
mean
you're
that's just
absolutely right.
from his point of view, he might have been like, "This is great," but watching from the outside,
No.
she was. It was very taken aback, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That would be, in a way, a signal. I mean, she obviously didn't need help particularly, but you're right. That was the subliminal signal, because normally, and they do kind of discuss it before they do it. I mean, there was a bit of a lunge there, but it's not forced on them. But you expect to see signals of collusion, agreement, acceptance, whereby the other person puts a hand out and touches the person while they're kissing. But when they go like that, you're absolutely right. That's a barrier gesture, and it almost looks like old-fashioned. Oh my, it's like old-fashioned coyness. Look what he's doing to me. So that, and again, that would have played quite well into David's hands at that point. Oh well, he's kissing me, but I'm yours if you want me. But yeah, that did send out mixed messages.
And then we saw obviously the aftermath where Andrew. He was a very different character, not as forthcoming. He was very defeated after his conversation with Luca. I actually thought that was so interesting because I think they've kind of emerged as two game players, quite obvious game players, but very different styles. And he was defeated. Luca won, didn't he? And when he's having that conversation with Tasha afterwards, like you said before, he looked like he was going to cry. He was such a shell of the person that he was the day before.
Yeah, I think probably he'd overscored his skills as a game player, and I don't think you can't be a game player and have quite a softness inside, which is what he's got. He tried it, but then when he got found out, I think number one, he was probably worried that the public would think that he'd been a liar. But also, it's so important, as we always know in Love Island, that the male bonding in there is sacrosanct, isn't it? They all have to get whatever goes on with the women. They always have to support one another and get on with one another, and they form this tight unit. And I think he realised that might lead to him being rejected by. And again, Adam, it's really weird with the men's group in there. They're kind of lacking a heavyweight alpha presence. I think if they could send somebody in, I mean, I'm not going to ring the producers up, but maybe get one or two guys in there now that are more heavyweight, that have got more of a dominant presence. I think that would let Luca, because Luca's kind of the alpha, which is not a role that is right for him, but that would allow him to just go and be all Machiavellian and plan everything, but be Jack the Lad. Also, we wouldn't get this, Andrew just crumpled, and that wasn't a good look. It's like to be defeated. Why, Luca was moving in on the woman that he was sharing a bed with. Why didn't he just turn around and say, well, look, mate, I'm not going to advertise you. I'm not going to sort of like say what you really said. I'm not doing your groundwork for you. But yeah, I think he crumpled way too soon, and there was no real need for that. I don't think, that huge apology.
No, not at all. And it was just very interesting. I think how Luca presented himself again with that self-assurance, and he was just so cool. And and immediately Andrew was it just came over him immediately, didn't it? You could just see it. And he just wasn't the same afterwards. Whereas Luca is, and especially, I mean, you're looking from the outside in terms of, if I was going to look at, if you could put it on mute and just kind of looking at Luca and looking at Andrew, I'd know who I would be most attracted to in that conversation, I think, just on a kind of a power dynamic and just their body language.
Yeah, I mean, Luca did go in there and his chat up lines and his comments were a little bit gamey, but in a way, I think compared to some of the way the others are seducing their women, but I'm just chilling and I think probably the women will find him increasingly attractive, because at least he's a bit sparky, and you can have a bit of a lot, and they all want the banter, don't they? They love the banter, and I think maybe they might need to ship a box of banter in there, actually, because they're running out quite quickly.
I mean, no one else is. There's definitely no other guys bringing the bants, which is a term I don't ever say again.
I don't know why, because again, and I know when people do their VT to go in, they always overact and over boast about it. But a lot of the guys did seem genuinely as though they were going to be quite fun. As I say, I really think they've muddled it up and think they are genuinely on holiday. I think they think they're going to stretch out on the beach and have a good time. No, prod them, please, with a cattle prod or something.
I wonder if they thought Davide would do that and be that kind of alpha, actually, because especially with that, you come as that bombshell. That's kind of, you're already bringing that, that kind of big presence, aren't you? Really, and he hasn't quite got that demeanour about him, has he?
No, and I think the way he was brought in, I mean, the normal formation of an alpha focused group would be that group would have been established before David arrived and maybe been a bit resilient to him. He's a little bit of an outsider, I think, in that group anyway. And I think coming in like that, he would have been the one that would be a bit rejected. I don't think they're really bonding with. I mean, he doesn't. What is he? 27. I mean, and I'm not being rude, but he could be 37. He's much more grown up than the rest of them. And when we get things like, oh, there's 2 new girls arriving, and the guys are all jumping around acting like complete idiots, and acting like they're 17 or something, and he starts jumping around. I don't know. I just get this feeling that, oh, you're a bit too grown up to be. I mean, I think he says he's got a like a business empire or something like that. I think he's a different. I don't think he will naturally take that, and I think if an alpha arrives, I think he'll just float around the perimeters.
Yeah, I'm not sure his time in the villa is going to be. I think he's going to be quite short-lived, I think. But two people who've had actually quite a promising start is Dami and Amber. Let's take a look at their journey so far.
I'm actually buzzing.
Oh, do you waiting to kiss me?
Yeah, for a minute now. I want to see what your lips actually felt like. Amber kissed me, a big girl in that. With all the girls just kissed me. Oh my God. Dami just got a kiss. Whoa.
Now, again, we haven't actually seen that much of these two, so I would quite like to have seen a bit more of their journey so far. But as it stands, I think that's probably, very early days. And there's not like we're batting off genuine connections left, right, and centre. But I do think they are off to quite a good start so far. What did you make of that?
I like Amber. I mean, when she went in, I thought, yes, again, another strong personality. I'm going to disappoint you now. I don't think she's that in to Dami. Did you not see when he went across for the kiss? I don't know whether she's ever had a job in the police force, because she cuffed him with her own hand. Like I think she's going to get a taser out in a minute. She grabs his hand to stop him touching her. I mean, that was so swift. They then did a very noisy and passionate mouse kiss, but again, complete separation. I'm not going to be all anti this though, because I think you're absolutely right. I think we haven't seen anything much between them on the build up to that, and he was being quite monosyllabic with her, and she's obviously somebody that likes to chat, she's got an interesting, but suddenly he became very sweet, and he did. I almost applauded him at the end, because I think everybody started to like him at that point, because not only did he kiss her, when he kissed her, he started to celebrate like a little kid. Damn, you got a kiss. And that lowering behaviour, that submissive behaviour, that quite sweet, I think it gave her the boost that she wanted to her ego, because I think she'd thought that he just wasn't interested. And suddenly he burst out that, so he'd been fancying her all along, and he'd been plucking up the courage, and he was so excited, and that he might think he's punching above his weight, and that made her grin. So I think that moment after the kiss was probably more important than the kiss itself.
No, I actually agree. And there was a moment when they were sat by, they were on the sunbeds, and there seems to be like a genuine giddiness about them, which I think I quite like. Kind of child going. When you revert into your kind of like your childlike instincts, and there's just that giddiness seems to be quite genuine between them, I think.
Yeah, I think maybe, I mean, she's quite grown up, sophisticated, and I think maybe he was quietly a little bit intimidated by her to start with. But unfortunately, I think if he was, that began to look as though he wasn't remotely interested in her. And I think I'm glad they've got over that and they both know where they stand. And I think him admitting that he was so excited and pleased with that kiss, I think that's probably done good with her. I don't think she's going to get all rejecting and everything like that. I think she'll be pleased that that sweeter side of him has come out. And I love the way, I don't know whether that was the first time they kissed or, you know they do retakes with these things, don't you? You know, sorry, should I not mention that? But you could see him licking his lips, getting ready for it, and she was doing the same. So I think they both knew what was going to happen. But he just needs to watch out and take baby steps, because as I say, the way she grabbed his hand, I think the floodgates have not opened now. He's still got to court her and woo her, which I think I'm looking forward to watching that. I was so pleased that we saw that side of him then.
Yeah, me too. And I hope we get to see more of them, I think. So I really do want to see how that journey progresses. So any predictions for next week?
Well, obviously it's going to hinge a lot on the two new women that have come in. They both look way too grown up for most of the guys in there. And Liam, you know, Liam's going to go out on these double dates with these very grown-up looking women as well. I mean, bless him, he's not you know, oh, you must live in a big house. Oh, do you keep horses outside? You know, if you think that you keep a horse inside a house, and that makes him very endearing, but to a certain, maybe somebody really sweet and cute and young themselves. But apart from that, I don't know. If I was working on the production team, I would be bringing the big guns in terms of the guys quite quickly, because I think the guys that are in there need a bit of a shake-up already. And I think we need to see some much more electrifying flirtings, you know, really bring out, because I think the girls are great, but I don't think the guys are bringing out the best in them at the moment. And I think it would just be great to see them getting wooed properly and flirted with properly and get a few sparks going would be fantastic.
No, I agree. And there is time. So, fingers crossed. Anyway, join us next week for another episode of Love or Lie Island. And we'll be back with the fabulous Judi James. Take care.